everyone. On behalf of CATS, I welcome all the speakers and each one of you to the Play Story session of Festival of Places 2020, jointly hosted by Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, New Delhi, and CATS. The Festival of Places is an initiative of CATS, a not for profit organization working in the area of heritage conservation, management, and advocacy since 2001. We have been working with a vision to highlight local heritage assets, empower local communities, and make heritage conservation participatory and sustainable. An effort such as ours requires technical and financial assistance as well as patronage. You can support and participate in our multiple initiatives and programs by volunteering your skills and contributing financially. Do visit our website www.indiaheritagehub.org or write to us at info@catsindia.org for more details. We at CATS feel very strongly about the dismal state of public spaces in our cities and firmly believe change in the way we think, talk, and use public spaces can only begin at the grassroots by creatively engaging people with places and empowering them to make a difference to the places and spaces around. The Festival of Places is an idea born out of the spirit of volunteerism to come together, collaborate, co create, and celebrate places that nurture health, happiness, and foster community living. The festival aims to bring people, places, and memories and the interrelationships at the forefront of public discussion. It envisions to investigate places, the people who inhabit them, the collective and individual memories that are integral to places, and present them in a new way to leverage discussions on the future of public spaces. The festival provides an opportunity to people for sharing their personal narratives. Moreover, the festival aims to help discover the much overlooked human dimension of places. The main highlight of the festival this year is Play Stories, a series of online storytelling sessions that help understand the hidden dimensions, multiple interpretations, and varied memories associated with places, highlighting their distinct characteristics as well as unraveling the bond that people have with them, a connection that lives through their experiences. The storytelling sessions by professionals, scholars, and students from diverse fields focused on public spaces have been planned around the theme of exploring memory in places. In our last Play Story session, we crisscrossed the northern plains to discover Vrindavan on the banks of the Yamuna River and explored the lanes, bylanes, and ghats of the city, reverberating with Radhe Radhe. Today, we will head up north to Punjab to discover a hidden gem of the bygone era. The Indian subcontinent has been connected to the rest of the world since time immemorial and has been of great interest to outsiders. Ancient trade routes have intersected the geography of this land, fostering both exchange of ideas, culture, and goods. Some came as invaders and went away with the booty, while others, though they came as invaders, but eventually settled down to make this land their own, leaving behind a great legacy of their times. The title of today's play story is Dakhni Sarai, a traveler's refuge on the Badshahi Sadak. Our storyteller for the session, Miss Bhavya Janji, will be taking us through the lush green landscape of Punjab to discover the Dakhni Sarai built in 1640 AD by Ali Mardan Khan during the reign of Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan. The place expert for the session, Ms. Gurmeet Rai, will take us back in time, expanding the narrative around this historical sarai and unravel the unique cultural landscape traveling along a very special and important road which has been there for centuries in different avatars, right from Uttarapat to Badshahi Sadak to Sadke Azam to the Grand Trunk Road. Our play storyteller Bhavya grew up in Jalandhar, Punjab and graduated from Delhi Public School. Currently, she is a second year student enrolled in Sushant School of Art and Architecture's Bachelor of Architecture program. She is an ambitious, passionate, and self motivated individual having interests across a variety of fields like architectural design, real estate development, sustainable green buildings, and norms. She is easily able to interact and communicate with a variety of audiences. She has completed courses in site design, improvement, philosophy, and science of value and real estate development. Her soft skills include leadership and management. Our place expert, Ms. Gurmeet Rai, is an architect with specialization in heritage conservation and management. She is among the first generation conservation architects in India and has worked in the area of architectural conservation, management plans for World Heritage Sites, urban conservation strategies for historic settlements, sustainable cultural heritage tourism, preparation of advisory and policy documents. She was awarded Award of Distinction by UNESCO for two projects under the Asia Pacific Architectural Heritage Awards in the year 2002 and 2004, following which she has been on the jury of the Asia Pacific Architectural Heritage Awards of UNESCO for over 15 years. UNESCO appointed her as the lead consultant for preparation of the cultural heritage policy for Punjab in 2011. She is currently a member of the steering committee of TERRA 2021, World Congress on Earthen Architectural Heritage, Getty Conservation Institute, and serves on several international and national advisory and academic bodies related to heritage. So we now begin our conversation around Dakhini Sarai, and I invite Bhavya to please introduce her place story.
Good evening, everyone. Today I'm going to start with the introduction of Dakhni Sarai. This beautiful monument called Dakhni Sarai is located in Jahangir village of Jalandhar district on Nakodar Kapurthala Road at a distance of about 23 kilometers in Jalandhar city. It was built around 1640 by Ali Mardan Khan, a noble, in Mughal court during the reign of Emperor Shah Jahan. Dakhni Sarai was basically a rest house built for Mughal caravan. This sarai was built along GT Road that was built by Sher Shah Suri. During the Mughal period, a lot of sarais were built for the soldiers of the king to rest while traveling, and a good number of sarais were built along the old highway from Delhi to Lahore as it was a popular route. Most of these sarais have remarkable built, and these serve as an example of architectural excellence of the Mughal time. One of such beautiful built sarai is Dakhni Sarai, which I am introducing it today to you all. Dakhni Sarai is the finest example of Mughal architecture, and talking about its architectural beauty, it has intricate carvings and designs that can be seen in the various parts of the complex. Talking about its layout, Dakhni Sarai is built in a quadrangular shape. It is enclosed with the fortified walls. The sarai has two magnificent three-story gateway. One is called the Delhi Gate and other is called the Lahori Gate. Within the walls, Dakhni Sarai has a total of 124 cells, a well, a mosque, and the soldiers to play in, and a mosque for the soldiers to play in. The monument is adorned with geometrical floral patterns and glaze tiles work, which makes the appearance look stunning. So, Urvashi ma'am, I would like to
Yes,
present
I
my
will.
talk.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
Dakhni Sarai is one of the finest and best preserved specimens of Mughal caravan sarais built along the old highway. It stands in the village Dakhni on the Nakodar Kapurthala road about 12 km from Nakodar. The sarai is said to have built by the well-known Mughal noble Ali Mardan Khan during the reign of Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan about AD 1640. It comprises of 124 cells inside the Dakhni Sarai. Also, the motors, as you can see in the blue color on the walls, is built with the organic colors and dyes. Hello guys, today I am here in the Dakhni Sarai of Nakodar, Punjab, India. And as you can see, it is one of the most beautiful and conserved sarai. And here the context of the site is really very beautiful. Along this side there is a river bank, and also here over the arch you can see a big humongous scale of arch, as you can see over here. And also the brick masonry walls, like for example you can see the mortar is used between the two bricks, and this bond is called the English Flemish bond and also the header stretcher bond. This side, this part of the arch is called the header stretcher bond. And also this caravan sarai is known for its arches, and also for the sarais that is being built inside the area. Also you can see the garden around side the arches on the left and right hand side. Comprises of 124 cells around a closed quadrangle with two imposing gateways in the center of the eastern and western quadrangle. Inside the quadrangle is a mosque and a well. Dakhni Sarai is a fine example of Mughal architecture. This place is adorned with intricate carvings and designs that can be seen in the various parts of the complex. Talking about its layout, Dakhni Sarai is built in a quadrangular shape. Dakhni Sarai is adorned with beautiful wells, as you can see over here. It is completely constructed with brick masonry and it is so deep. There are circular domes on four corners of the outer wall of Dakhni Sarai that provided fortification. A gateway that projects out of the wall is strengthened by octagonal towers with domical cupolas on top. This place was used as a pottery place at that time, and the material used in this was silica, alumina, lime, magnesia and potash that were used in Mughal period. These are the Arabic imprints that are faded over the period of time. हेलो सर
हेलो
आपका एक्सपीरियंस कैसा रहा दक्षिणी सराय का? हेलो सर
हेलो
आपका एक्सपीरियंस कैसा रहा दक्षिणी सराय का?
ਸਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਲੱਗਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਣ ਕੇ। ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਬਚਪਨ ਤੋਂ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ। ਸਾਡੇ ਦਾਦਾ ਜੀ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਬਚਪਨ ਦੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਇਹ
ਅੱਛਾ
ਕਾਫੀ
ਜੀ।
ਪੁਰਾਣੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਸਾਡੇ ਫਾਦਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਦੱਸਣ ਮੁਤਾਬਕ ਇੱਥੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਚਹਿਲ ਪਹਿਲ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ। ਲੋਕ ਘੁੰਮਣ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ।
अब तो भैया कोविड के सिचुएशन में ज़्यादा नहीं आते होंगे ना?
ਹਾਂ ਇਹ ਥੋੜਾ ਕਰੋਨਾ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਇਸ
ਕਰੋਨਾ
ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਹੋਇਆ ਵਾ। ਲੋਕ ਥੋੜਾ ਬਾਹਰ ਨਿਕਲ ਤੋਂ ਡਰਦੇ ਆ
हाँ जी
ਜਾਂ ਟੂਰਿਸਟ ਏਰੀਆ ਜਾਣ ਤੋਂ ਡਰਦੇ ਆ
हम्म,
ਤੇ ਪਰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਲੋਕ ਥੋੜਾ ਆਣੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਨਾ ਕੁਝ ਟਾਈਮ ਤੋਂ
कुछ टाइम तक।
ਆਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਲੋਕ।
और भैया ये जगह जो है आजकल कैसे यूज़ करते हैं लोग?
ਲੋਕ ਇੱਥੇ ਇੱਕ ਨਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਇਹ ਟੂਰਿਸਟ ਪਲੇਸ ਬਣਦਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਵਾ। ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਦੇ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਕੁੜੀਆਂ ਜਾਂ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਹਨਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਣ ਕੇ ਬਰਥਡੇ ਸੈਲੀਬ੍ਰੇਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ
ओके
ਤੇ ਬੜਾ ਚੰਗਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਵਾ। ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਬਚਪਨ ਤੋਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ।
अच्छा हाँ जी, तो मतलब आपको तो पता होगा बाहर की भी कौन सी चीज़ें यहाँ पे देखने लायक हैं?
ਇੱਥੇ
जैसे-
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਨਾ ਇਧਰਲੀ ਸਾਈਡ ਤੇ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਹੈ
अच्छा जी
ਤੇ ਲੋਕੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਸ਼ਰਧਾ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਲੋਕ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ।
ओके। और एक मैंने नहर का भी नाम सुना है यहाँ पे भैया मैंने यहाँ पे सुना है एक रिवर भी है साइड पे दक्षिणी सराय के, आजकल कैसे वो यूज़ हो रहा है?
ਹਾਂ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਨਾ ਸਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਬੈਕ ਸਾਈਡ ਉੱਪਰ ਹੈ ਇਹ। ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਾ ਥੋੜਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਗੰਦਾ ਹੋਣ ਕਾਰਨ ਲੋਕੀ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਯੂਜ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ। ਸਾਡੇ ਦਾਦਾ ਜੀ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਪਾਣੀ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਸਾਫ਼ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਤੇ ਲੋਕ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਪੀਣ ਲਈ ਵਰਤੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ।
अच्छा
ਪਰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਅਣਗਹਿਲੀ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਇਹ ਪਾਣੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਗੰਦਾ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਵਾ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਵਰਤਣ ਦੇ ਯੋਗ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਿਹਾ। ਇੱਕ ਮੈਂ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਅਪੀਲ ਵੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਵਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵੱਲ ਵੀ ਧਿਆਨ ਦੇਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ। ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਬਿਲਡਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵੱਲ ਧਿਆਨ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੋਹਣੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ
हाँ जी,
ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ
अब
ਇਹਦੀ
तो ये ASI के अंडर है बिल्डिंग।
ਹਾਂ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਦੇਖਭਾਲ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਆ। ਇਹਦੀ ਸਮੇਂ-ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੁਰੰਮਤ ਹੁੰਦੀ
और
ਰਹਿੰਦੀ।
भैया ये काफ़ी साफ भी रहती है, तो
बिल्कुल।
तब से लेके अब तक तो काफ़ी चेंज आया है ना, मतलब जब आपके ग्रैंडपा थे उसके बाद अब जाके।
ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਦੱਸਣ ਦੇ ਮੁਤਾਬਕ ਉਦੋਂ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਸੀ, ਉਦੋਂ ਦੇ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵਧੀਆ ਸੀ। ਪਰ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਵੱਲ ਧਿਆਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਇਹਦੀ ਹਾਲਤ ਖਸਤਾ
ਤਬ
ਹੋ
ਹਾਲਤ
ਚੁੱਕੀ ਸੀਗੀ
ਖਰਾਬ ਹੋ ਗਈ।
ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਵੱਲ ਧਿਆਨ ਦੇ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਵਾ। ਇਸ ਲਈ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ। ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਮੁਰੰਮਤ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਸਾਫ਼ ਸਫਾਈ ਦਾ ਧਿਆਨ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਵਾ।
ठीक है भैया, थैंक यू सो मच।
ਓਕੇ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ।
हेलो मैम,
Hello.
how was your experience in Dakhni Sarai?
I've come here at least maybe 50, 100 times. I live nearby. I think I've seen it from being in absolute ruins to the way it is now. And whoever comes from anywhere in the world, we bring them here to show them a little about the past.
Okay.
And I love it. It just like takes you back like time
Right, Mughal times.
Yeah, Mughal times, times immemorial, and you get to know how they traveled and those little posts outside,
Right.
and how the horses were all fed here, and all of them had I think this is the prayer room here. So so it really feels good here.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
sharing your experience. Now let's talk to a few people for the interview. Hello, sir and ma'am.
Hello.
How was your experience in Dakhni Sarai? Can you please explain?
Yeah, it was quite good. It is very peaceful out here, and we really love the view and the monuments that have been built around 380 years ago. Also, there's a masjid or maqbara, what we can say in English, at the top of that Delhi gate, which I get to know.
That was amazing, yeah.
And there's a lot of greenery, and moreover, I'm really enjoying
You
the
want to say that
serenity.
manifestation of nature, yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm really enjoying the serenity in this place.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. There are circular domes or four corners of the outer wall of Dakhni Sarai that provided fortification. A gateway that projects out of the wall is strengthened by octagonal towers with domical cupolas on top. The brick jali that you can see in the middle of the arch was used as the lattice screens in the Mughal period. This long elongated structure acted as a drainage system during that time. I am going to tell you about the significance of sarais in general in past. Sarais were generally large enclosures providing board, stable, fodder, entertainment and similar other facilities to the traveller. All the available evidence about sarais in Indian period to the following Turkish conquest was known to have existed in the vicinity of Delhi as early as in Balban's reign. At least from Firoz Shah Tughlaq time onwards, the rulers of Delhi Sultanate are definitely known to have established sarais for public use. The most important significance of sarais was started by Shah Suri. He established sarais for the convenience of travellers on every road at a distance of 2 kilometers. Sarais were built at regular intervals of distance on the road running from Punjab, Bengal. Similarly, sarais were established between Agra and Jodhpur and Lahore and Multan. Travel in medieval times was undertaken by traders, merchants, pilgrims and state officials. Usually sarais were built to provide accommodation to the travellers on their wayside stops during night. In some of these there are provisions for food also in addition to other facilities, whereas in others food was cooked by the traveller himself. It is the only Mughal bridge left in Punjab. The Mughal bridge is made up of Lakhori bricks and has 5 arch spans. The central begin the highest and other 4 in receding order. The present significance of Dakhni Sarai is this Mughal bridge. The Mughal bridge is to the south of the village Malia Khurd on Nakodar Kapurthala road, about 12 km from Nakodar. This is one of the extant Mughal bridge built during the reign of Shah Jahan AD 1627 to 1658. The bridge spanned the Dhauli Veni river to the east of the Dakhni Sarai. It is made up of Lakhori bricks and has 5 arch spans. The central begin the highest and other 4 is receding order. The Mughal bridge is made up of Lakhori bricks and has 5 arch spans. The central begin the highest and other 4 in receding order. Dakhni Sarai is a beautiful monument that gives insight on Mughal time. A visit to this monument is totally going to be worth your while. It is beautifully designed and well preserved structure that tells the story of Mughal times. A must visit monument to look at olden times. So today I am going to share about my experience in Dakhni Sarai 6 years back from now. The question arises that why do we need to sense a place? We usually relate place with physically and mentally emotions, hence both are important for making a place. There is a difference between space and place, as space is associated with memories and space helps in making a place. Dakhni Sarai isn't a space, but now it has turned into a beautiful and unforgettable place for me. I was 14 when I visited here with my grandfather, who was an architect. He was really fond of historical monuments and public places related to history. 6 years back from now, the ambience was totally different. Tourists and visitors along with some localites came to visit our hidden heritage of Punjab. We were allowed to rest for a while in the garden. My grandpa made me understand the use of sarais and how it catered the purpose of resting for the traders in medieval period. And when I came here again after 6 years, this place made me smile again, as I was unaware of the fact that even I would be following the footsteps of my grandfather.
Thanks, Bhavya, for introducing Dakhni Sarai to us. Would you like to give some concluding remarks so that then
Yes,
we can move?
yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, my memory associated with Sarai was very, very good. So, being an architecture student, I was really fond of monuments and historic places. So, entering into the humongous hidden monument of Punjab, I was completely stunned with its architectural principles and elements. There was so much to say and tell while shooting the video. The historicity of the place was also very interesting in the way that it has quadrangular layout. I must say that the architects at the time of Mughal era were truly talented with their artistic skills as well as their constructional approach towards the complex. This was my first experience of making a video and narrating about the architectural elements of the Sarai. The memory associated to this was enriching and unforgettable indeed. So much to gain and enhance about the knowledge of architecture and its conservation architecture and towards our past. The most important characteristic which I found was the bulbous domes and their emphasis in terms of architecture. Secondly, was the Mughal garden that was divided into quadrangular shape. Also, we learned about how the manifestation of nature helps in maintaining the peace and serenity of the place. Thirdly, the brick jali patterns were also used in some cells and in each and every cell and was used as lattice screens. Lime plaster bearing gorgeous designs and patterns were also painted over the internal portion of the mosque. So it was a beautiful experience to discover this hidden heritage of my own hometown and would love to explore more about historic places further. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavya. And I'm sure I will now invite Gurmeet to expand the narrative. And I'm sure after Gurmeet has presented her story, you will definitely want to visit this place once again. So, Gurmeet, please start your presentation.
Hello. So, Bhavya, thank you for sharing your experience and your love for historical places. I don't know where to begin because I think I've spent half my lifetime moving on this road, especially in the Punjab section. And I began my conservation practice with the travel on the Grand Trunk Road. And that I did, like yourself, searching for my roots. And I said, okay, because I am from Punjab, but I didn't know the history of Punjab. So for me, I was looking for an area that I can travel. And then the road gave me, a contiguous area to travel and try to understand culture, heritage, the way people's belief system and how it manifests into cultural expressions and so on. These were not the words I was using at that point, and I think I was just a little older than what you are today. So the Badshai Sarak, the Mughal road, interestingly, when you look at roads, the Uttarapath, the Great Northern Highway, which kind of passes through from Punjab on one end, on the western side, all the way to Bengal, is something which existed even before the medieval time. This existed in the ancient time. And most fascinating thing about this road is that it was a space for dialogue between civilizations. So this is the road on which, literally the passage by which Buddhism went from India into Central Asia, and later on, Islam came into India, and then the merging and mixing happened in the northern plains, and you had the Sufi and the Bhakti tradition in the medieval period. So the exchange of experience, ideas, learning from each other, cross-pollination between cultures and people, it actually happened across this entire passage. So what you see as a building, which is the Sarai, it's a place which gave shelter to traders, it gave shelter to pilgrims. And in Punjab, in fact, Punjab is one state in the country where several sarais are intact, because unfortunately a lot of them have been lost. So Punjab at least has about 10 of them in place. And so it was the kings, the Mughal kings used to park themselves, the capital of a country of the Mughal India used to be where the king is, where the emperor is. So Jahangir traveled from, Agra all to Lahore up towards Kashmir, and that's where I'm sitting right now. So wherever the king was going, the entire entourage would go, and that's where the capital of the country was moving. So that was quite fascinating. The armies would take shelter in the sarai. The traders would take a shelter in sarai. So really what you have experienced is a space or a place, which actually, if one were to able to see that who all have been here, it's been many, many people for many, many purposes. And it's a very, very foundational thing of the Indian civilization, which is to give shelter to the travelers, to the vulnerable. And sarai clearly is one such built heritage, which represents the care and the sharing and empathy that, the Indian civilization holds very close to itself. And what I would like to do at this point is share with you one of the landscapes on the Mughal Road. And this is the landscape of Sirhind in Punjab, or Sarhand. And that is that the popular saying is that when the conquerors used to come from the northwestern side into the Indian subcontinent, that if you capture Sirhind, you have captured Hind. It's the head of Hind. And between Punjab was much larger. It was the land of the 5 rivers. It did not have a political boundary. It was a cultural entity defined by geographical elements like the rivers. It was much larger. So between Lahore as a very important Mughal city on one end and Agra on the other end, Delhi came in later. Sirhind is almost like in the middle between these two important cities. And I will just share an image with you, with everybody here on the talk. Can you see it? Can you see?
We can. Yeah.
Now, this is a drawing done by this very, very famous contemporary artist called Aurajit Sen. And Aurajit, when I was working on the Grand Trunk Road, because Punjab means, for me, it's my soul is embedded in that landscape. So when I looked at the satellite image, or the Google image, I would see one type of features. If I look at the maps that we make, it has some other features. It wasn't doing justice to my experience, my love for the land, and other people, how they connect to their heritage. So I had asked Aurajit to map, to represent the stories that we captured from the landscape into a drawing which tells the story of Punjab in the last 500 years, or whatever was evident in the landscape of Sirhind. So what you see here is what is dear to the people of this region. So on one hand, you get to see the Mughal bridge. In fact, this one is a bridge. It's a series of 3 bridges called the Mughal Bridge, built by Jahangir. It's an unprotected monument. It's a main highway. Trucks ply on it even today. So like you said very correctly, that they built very well. So this particular Mughal bridge can even take trucks on it. Then what you have here, so when Jahangir came, and there's an Amkhas Bagh, which is another Mughal Sarai of the Royal Sarai, which is not part of this drawing, it's part of another drawing. From there, the Mughals, this would have been the road, the Badshahis. And a few kilometers ahead is this very important site called the Roza Sharif. And this is it's a very important Islamic site. and it has the grave of Shah Zaman, who was the exiled ruler of Afghanistan, and very, very important for a large group of the Muslim community. Now, this is a place where you see pre-Mughal buildings. You get to see the tombs of Ustad and Shagird, and this tomb of Mir Mira, tomb of Bibi Taj. These are Delhi Sultanate period tombs in the landscape, and they sit in the middle of a lot of fields. And within the fields, you see these little villages called Talania and several others. A very important structure here is called Sadna Kasai Ki Masjid. And Sadna Kasai, his masjid is right by the railway line. And he was a butcher, but he wrote a composition which is included in the Guru Granth Sahib, the Sikh, the holy scriptures of the Sikh community. So, and there's a railway line that goes by that. And so that's very important part of the narrative is also Sadna Kasai's masjid. Subsequently, there was a very important narrative in the Sikh community when the two younger sons of Guru Gobind Singh were bricked alive. There's a narrative on the historical, that there's a Saka of Sirhind. And there, what marks the site of that particular historical tragic event is the Fatehgarh Sahib Gurdwara. And this is the drawing of that Gurdwara with those two Shahzadas, the young ones, being bricked alive like this. And then so when after they were bricked alive, there was a trader, a businessman, a Hindu businessman called Todarmal, who actually went to the Wazir and he wanted to take the bodies of these young Shahzadas and wanted to give them a respectful cremation. So he was asked to get gold sharfis and take that he will only get that much land that can be covered by gold coins. So there is a Haveli there called Todar Malki Haveli or the Jahazi Haveli, which is also in Fatehgarh Sahib Sirhind, and that is marked here. Subsequently, there was Banda Bahadur who wanted to avenge this atrocity against these two young Shahzadas in the early part of the 18th century. And then there was this battle of Sirhind in 1710. Every year, a Mela is held called the Jor Mela to commemorate the tragic event associated with the Shahzadas, where people from across the landscape of Punjab come to the Gurdwara, do their seva, and they come here. Now, what I would like to share with you here also is the changing colors of the landscape. So you see the green crop here, you see the mustard in a later part of the spring, subsequently the wheat ripens in the summer, and then you have the fields like this. What you also see is a little bit of mischief that we have done, because the personalities associated with this landscape is like Jahangir. So we've got a little drawing here of Jahangir, and he was like the government of today with his white ambassador and the Lal Batti. And then we have Alexander Cunningham, who traveled the Punjab in 1860s to all historical sites. So we have him on this little monorail here. That's Alexander Cunningham here. So, of course, you get to see the harvesting here as well. So what I would like to share with you is that when you look at a landscape, like you saw one monument, there is a lot of, there are your personal memories. There are memories of communities around. There are stories that every element, whether it's building or the landscape or the road or fairs and festivals or the food, they all come together to make that experience of that place. So this is something which Aurojit did for me. And to my mind, I'm sure you'll agree that this is a beautiful representation. And this is my little, and it captures my experience, and it captures my memory as a Punjabi, as a person who's worked as a heritage practitioner. And it also captures little nuances of how people of this land associate with this particular landscape. So Urvashi, that's all that I have to say for now.
Okay, thanks, Gurmeet. Atulya, do we have any questions from the audience?
No, ma'am, I don't have any questions yet.
Okay, so Gurmeet, you were talking about how important this road is, and it's been there since ancient times. Could you also throw some more light about the evolving nature of this major imperial highway which has been there right from, I would say, the times of the Mauryan period down to Sher Shah Suri, and then during the Mughal period?
Yeah, Urvashi, what I really, when I look at a historical period, and I always compare it to the current times as well, because the needs of human beings, the needs of society remain the same. And even in terms of human behavior remains the same. So when I look at this road and I see, and as students of architecture or cultural heritage practitioners, we actually then see the manifestation of what was happening, what were the learnings, what were the experiences that were the cross-fertilization that was happening. So one big phenomena that happens is the making of cities. So we start seeing important cities like Lahore or Sultanpur Lodi or Agra or Delhi. And like that, if you go all the way down to the eastern part of the road, you see this whole phenomena of city building that happens. Because once people are traveling and moving around that, they are bringing traditions, there's trade then starts happening, the city starts growing, economic development happens, new traditions come in, new skills come in with the travelers, with people who come across. And then you have craft that develops, architecture that develops. People, when traders come, they take things that their part of the world needs and they bring what this part of the world needs. So new kind of knowledge systems kind of evolve. Literature evolves, music evolves. So we look at Hindustani classical, whether we look at the traditions of the Indo-Gangetic Plain or the Indus Valley. You have poetry of Amir Khusro in the Indo-Gangetic Plain, and you have Bulle Shah, Baba Farid in the Indus Valley Plain. So, these kind of things develop. A very important thing also develops is faith and belief. So the Sufi Bhakti, the pure contours of the earlier Hinduism practice or Islam in its one tradition towards the more orthodox or whatever towards the western part, Central Asia. When it comes and merges in India, you get a new tradition. So from the earlier times, from the Buddhist period all the way to the Mughal period, and subsequently, in fact, the only lot who come from the other direction is the British. The British came by sea.
Yeah.
So they come to Calcutta and in 1757 and travel all the way up north. And they come to Delhi in the early part of the 20th century. So while the Buddhism and the Islam tradition and the evolving of these cities is from Central Asia to the subcontinent, the colonial influence comes from Calcutta and moves up. And that's when the road becomes the Grand Trunk Road. They realign it to control this northern plains, and they put the railway line and all that. So you actually can capture 2,000 years of the evolution of a civilization, if not more, or 2,300 years, by just watching what is happening on this passage.
Yeah. That's quite true. And in fact, as Festival of Places, we are trying to look at public spaces and how people connect with these places. So it is important also not just to look at contemporary places, but also look at places which were historically also functioning as public spaces. And I'm sure these sarais, although we see what we see is just the physical fabric of it, but the life within is something that we probably may not be able to imagine. So are there any sources which actually tell us about what was happening in those sarais? How are these functioning?
Yeah, there are multiple sources, archival sources. For instance, even if you were to look at Ain-e-Akbari, or you will actually get to understand that how were the royal sarais used when the emperor was traveling, and how this would morph, these sarais would morph into like a citadel. So it's like, you know, you had the fortification, you had the mosque, and you had the water bodies and these gates, and between tents, living in tents and all that, how the cities would move, how the entire entourage would establish itself and travel up like that. There are a lot of sources which also, like Kim, Rudyard Kipling's piece of work, it also tells you there are even other Mughal period sources tell you about the decree of the ruler, that how it was during Shah Jahan's period, Jahangir's period, there were the decree of the emperor that sarais were free of charge for the travelers, more specifically the traders. And it was also that they were mandated, the caretakers of the sarais, to give free food and ration, cooked food to the Muslim travelers, and dry rust, the dry uncooked food, to the Hindus. And that also not because they were being discriminated, because the tradition of making food, and you know, with this class caste system, you don't have somebody touching your food and all that, all that.
Yeah, yeah.
So there was free food was being made available to the traders. There was a certain way that these spaces were being used. In fact, it's quite interesting to see the nature of settlements around it. And, you know, even for Sikh history, I would say, like, you know, there are several sarais, Mughal sarais of Jahangir period, who was a contemporary of the sixth Sikh Guru, Guru Har Gobind. Wherever there's the Mughal sarai of Jahangir period, there is also a Gurdwara associated with the visit of Guru Har Gobind. Sirhind being one of that. So in fact, the narrative that I would like to understand of the relationship between the Mughal administration and the political regime and the Sikh gurus, that what was the relationship with the Mughals of the Sikh gurus, I get more information looking at these landscapes than I get in historical records.
Yeah.
So sometimes historical records are useful, which is more for the from the more classical type of, but a more vernacular narrative is available more in folk tales or in music, the poetry of the area, songs, as well as trying to understand the built fabric.
Yeah, yeah. So also, in fact, it would be also interesting to see because Sarai in itself was a sort of a nucleus for growth and development in the surrounding areas. So it would be also interesting to see how the region around was shaping up. How what was the manner in which the villages were coming up. And I read somewhere that there was a very very unique typology of settlement which actually got associated with these sarais. So would you like to share something about that? How I think some of the names of the settlements are also use sarai as a part of the name of the settlement.
Yeah. So, for instance, there's quite a range here. Because, for instance, if I were to give you the story of Sultanpur Lodi, which has a sarai there, which later on, which is built on the probably when Huin Sang traveled in this part of the world on the Uttara path, he went to Sultanpur Lodi. And this is something which Christopher Alexander also talks about. So there's a mound, and on top of the mound is a sarai. Now, Sultanpur Lodi gets its name from the Lodi period because there was Daulat Khan Lodi who was kind of ruling this area. So there's a settlement around it. And next to the settlement, you also have, next to the sarai, you also have a Anaj Mandi. So you kind of then see the relationship that when there were travelers staying in the sarais, bringing their wares, there's an Anaj Mandi, the local people would bring their produce, then the traders could pick it up and take it. So there's a relationship between the sarai where you can see the economics, the impact. It actually talks about the economy of the place. And these sarais were built at a distance of 32 courses. There's a logic.
Yeah, yeah.
You have course minars, which is at every course. Then there are sarais at every 32 course or something, or 16 course. And then there is a logic between the sarai, between two settlements as well. Because it was distance that a caravan could travel in one day. So they would leave in the morning, reach in the evening, they would reach the next parao, the next point they would stop. So that would be a sarai. And wherever they stay, either they're trading there, they're selling something, they're buying something. And in fact, these regular traders were given single cells within these sarais, which were lockable kind of space. So the trader, the principal trader, could leave certain things there. So I'm sure. So it was very well worked out. You know, if you look at the ecosystem, it was
Yes.
as advanced as we can think of a value chain today. It's just that
Yeah.
the technologies were different.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there has to be a very systemic change in the way we are presenting these very unique built forms, because just seeing it as a monument is actually not doing justice to the whole thing, because it's part of an entire network. And obviously the lives of the people living around the sarai were also very intensely connected to with these sarai itself, in terms of providing the rations for those people who are visiting there, or in terms of the
Yeah.
manpower, or in terms of even I read somewhere that the bazaars used to cater for the repair works, because you were the animals were there, the pack animals were there, the carts were there, everything would require, just like in our modern highways we have these repairs, workshops in between on the highways. So all those things were part of the entire network, and I think that is something which is important to highlight when we are trying to interpret these very unique structures. Uh, Palash, I think Palash Srivastava has raised a hand. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question? Palash, are you there? Okay. So, yeah, in fact, so just continuing our discussion further, uh, when we are talking about, these networks, uh, how does one, when we are looking even, in fact, at the sarai itself. So the sarais used to have these restrooms and the mosques and
Yeah.
do we find some?
Sorry. Are you able to hear me now? Hello.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. So I'm in fact exquisite. I would say both the presentations and particularly Gurmeet. I think this is the value that has to really kind of come through. Even when we are actually trying to make any intervention in a say a, a a place which is full of legacy for even if there are small infrastructure interventions which are to be made. So an understanding of how the community memory and you have really by showing that one picture captured very powerfully how the entire history of this country actually is pulsating through that particular place, and therefore it is remarkable how this comes up when it is adequately presented, or it is actually presented in a very creative way. Actually, the additional points that I would actually just want to intervene on is that definitely you've spoken of the sarai as the from the point of view of the services, facilities, and its integration with the say economic activity around and the cultural landscape around. One of the things which actually also seems to be important, and maybe I think and you have actually articulated how say the entire Mughal camp, as has been described by Bernier, that it used to move possibly 2 kilometers to 20 kilometers a day, and how the spacing of this say sarais, and then also their segmentation say between other sarais and the linkages between other sarais was actually something also very important. So I think it has been done very adequately by Bhavya, but but these are, because it's a good presentation, I would like to really understand more. And if Gurmeet, you have an understanding as to, I have been quite intrigued that even when you go to the Jaipur highway or the Agra Jaipur highway, or even from Delhi to Chandigarh or Agra to Delhi, you find a lot of settlements every 20 kilometers, as if this was more of a a planned kind of a thing. And then of course there was a Sikandra was also in all the directions. meaning somebody told me that it was about 100 kilometers from the capital. So I think if you could just let me know more about this, I'm quite intrigued by the observations and the presentations today.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Palash. The point is that we actually learn a lot when you're interested. I think it all starts with an interest. So when young people it's very reassuring when people like Bhavya, go and look for hidden meanings. So you begin with the actual tangible, what meets the eye, and then you go deeper and deeper. And it only goes deeper when that touches you. And I don't know whether the interest leads you to going deeper, or is it because I don't know what comes first. So clearly all that I have said, what happens, what the bit that I have in information bits and pieces, it's all fused together into one experiential thing, and it's very difficult then to describe, to separate that, look, this is what I read and therefore I can authenticate, and how much of it is coming from my own experience. So what you've observed in 20 or 16 kilometer rationale, you've experienced it, and then you can find, authentic information by way of some contemporaneous archival sources. So I think it becomes, on the road of, it's a road of discovery, it's a road to travel, and it's a road of a journey in life, So I think it all comes together in such explorations,
Yeah. In fact, I think the way we have been looking at our history has also, maybe I think we need some more perspectives and different lenses to actually look at history and see it from, yeah, I think even a comparative study between how contemporary cities function and how historical cities would have functioned, it also will serve as a means of discovering other layers and dimensions to these very unique landscapes, because just imagining how a city would function, or how that journey from, say, Agra or Delhi to Lahore would have actually, unfolded, and what all, infrastructure and what all, requirements would have been there.
Yeah, sorry, Urvashi,
Yeah.
I just wanted to add how it's all coming alive in that sense that, there were grain movements which was happening through this Grand Trunk Road that we know of later, and Sher-Shah Suri Marg, and earlier, of course, the Mauryan frontier road. There were 200 bullock carts which would actually go like our, multi-axle vehicle trucks, which would go one after the other and would be running at, it has been described that it would be running close to, if you actually compare, close to about 40 odd kilometers per hour by our standards. So if these 200 bullocks have to actually be serviced, there will have been a great amount of ecosystem and economic activity around the highway. So I'm just sharing some, something which could actually become very visually exciting for young people like Bhavya, that, if you delve deeper, you would find that it is not that these highways that we really kind of now traverse have been always been, say, lined by the delineators and road markings and all these puncture repair shops and fuel stations, but they had a very different complexion as from the contemporaries to the times that they serviced. So I'm glad. I think this was taken up as a topic, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Palash. Gurmeet, anything else you would like to, share with us? Because now that we have all been very interested by, the landscape of Punjab, and in fact, that's the area where all the, right from the Saraswati Valley civilization to the later period, this entire belt has been very active in terms of, development, whatever development was happening in the northern part of the country. So would you like to share something else which is of interest to the topic?
You know, I think with these unusual times that we've gone through in the last in 2020 with the COVID and all that, and I think what has been very encouraging is that what I hear, especially in this place in Kashmir, I got to hear that a lot of young people traveled their own state because they didn't want to sit inside their homes, so they all went on treks. And so people been, the tourism department has been saying that, you know, it's the local young tourists that they have catered to this last year. So I think it's very important to travel your own landscape, the country, because I think India needs to be understood better by Indians themselves. And it's very important to not be too, elite about how we look at our built heritage. It's not about the size and the known patrons and what you read and you go to. Make your exploration your personal experience. And I mean, that's been my learning because, I mean, that's a long story, but we look for the off the beaten track experience of India's cultural heritage. That's what I'd say, and not go for iconic sites only. That can be a point of entry, but spend more time in the larger landscape with ordinary people. So I think that's how you get to know yourself, you get to know your culture, you get to see your, and if you're a heritage practitioner, that's when you know how to, engage with and work with your heritage. So thank you so much. It was lovely, and congratulations, Urvashi. This is such a lovely initiative, really.
Thank you so much. And I think it's very true what you have said, that, we are just looking at individual pieces. We are looking very micro. The moment we rise a little above the ground, and we automatically start seeing those connections and networks. So I think that's where the whole, the intensity of information, the depth of the information will come only once we, move a bit away and look at the larger landscape rather than just one, one building, one settlement.
In fact, I would say, Urvashi, the word we should say that grow your roots, go deeper into the ground, not above the ground.
Grow deeper and grow taller as well.
Yeah, when you go deeper, you go taller in any case.
Yes, you go taller as well, and you are there for a longer period.
Yeah, dig deep, it's said,
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gurmeet. Thank you, Bhavya.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Gurmeet, ma'am.
The next play story session titled The Legacy of Maharaj Bada in Gwalior is scheduled for 28th February 2021 from 5 p.m. onwards. Our play story teller for the session, Miss Rashi Chawla, will be taking us into the historic core of Gwalior to witness the daily life of the residents of the city unfold within the historic Maharaj Bada in all its glory. The place expert for the session, Ms. Smita Singh, will take a deeper look into the historic bazaar and explore the connections that people from all walks of life have with the place. And place resident Mr. Jay Khande will share his personal experiences and memories of the place, having lived there for years. For some, the place is their livelihood, a place to transact business. For others, it is a place for shopping, and for others, a place for social interaction and being part of public life in the city. So stay tuned for our upcoming play story. I personally thank each one of you for your participation and support to the Festival of Places. Look forward to meeting all of you again next Sunday, same time, same place, for another exciting journey through the landscape of our country. Thank you so much.